Welcome, and for our today's session, we are going to examine a very good question that will help us to understand how a particular firm will assess the risk factor which is associated with some of the investment that it tends to put its funds in. Like in this case, we are told Makata Limited intends to invest its surplus funds in shares with the following return expectations. Now we have the returns in different economic conditions like boom, average, and recession, and the probability measure for each return, that is the risk factor, the risk associated at every level of economic condition is given. So we are told using the coefficient of variation, assess the risk associated with the investment. Now, this is a question that requires us to explain or requires us to determine the coefficient of variation, which is actually a measure of risk factor by ranking the project according to their size. But now in this case, we only have one project, so we are going to see what amount of risk factor will this particular project be faced with. So we have the economic condition under boom, which is the overall activity is high. We have average and recession, whereby the economic level is reducing drastically. So essentially, this company is interested in establishing two types of risk. We have financial risk and total risk. When we talk about financial risk, we are referring to the risk factor that is a company or a firm will face due to increased debt, that is by borrowing more debt than using its own equity finance. And in that case, we say that that company is highly leveraged or has a high gearing ratio. Again, this company is interested in determining the total or more business risk. And we talk about total risk, we have systematic risk and unsystematic risk. Now, systematic risk affects all the firms in the industry. These are macroeconomic conditions which affect all the firms, for example, inflation. We talk about unsystematic risk. This risk affects only a section of firms in the industry. They won't affect all the firms. And for that matter, it is very easy to diversify. We can easily control unsystematic risks, while systematic risks are not easy to control. Now, one of the main methods that is normally used in assessing this particular risk is the coefficient of variation. Now, coefficient of variation, as I said before, it is the relative measure of risks that rank projects according to their size. And we say that the higher the coefficient of variation, the higher the risk. So if the figure will be more than 0.5, it will this company will be faced with a high risk. A value less than 0.5, it means there will be low risk. So we are going to see in our calculation. And of course, we have the formula, which is the standard deviation divided by the expected returns. We are going to see. Like in this question, we are given the share returns and the probability under each economic condition. Now, when you talk about this formula, you can start by working what is known as the expected returns. So, if you get the expected returns in this case, ER, we're supposed to multiply the returns with each probability. Like we have, this is 0.4 times 0.2. So I have 0.4 times 0.2 plus the next one should be The next one should be 0.15. 0.15 times 0.6 plus the last one is negative 0.1 times 0.2. That is the probability that case, and we have a value of, when we multiply this one is supposed to be have 0.08. This one should be plus 0.09. Then this one should be, because there's a minus value, it's supposed to be 0.02. 0.02. This one should be 0.17 and 0.02 should be 0.15. So when we work everything here, is supposed to get 0.15. Now this one is our expected returns. Now we are supposed to get the standard deviation. That is the difference between the returns R minus ER. And for our first returns is 0.4. So we get our S, which is the standard deviation, which will be 0.4 minus 0.15, which is the expected return. You square that one, plus the second one should be 0.15. 0.15 minus 0.15 again, you square, then it will be 0, plus the last one is negative 1, negative 0.1 minus 0.15 squared. This one you're supposed to have, so 0.4 minus 0.15 is 0.25. Square the answer, supposed to get 0.0625 plus 0, the result is 0, plus negative 0.1 minus 0.15 is negative 0.25. When you square this one, you're supposed to get negative 0.25. You're supposed to get a value of 0.025. So it's supposed to be minus 0.025, 0.0625. Now, when you add the two, it's supposed to essentially get 0.0625 plus 0.0625, supposed to get 0.125. This is our standard deviation. But remember, our formula was standard deviation divided by the expected return. So our coefficient of variation is supposed to be 0.125 divided by expected returns of 0.15, 0.15, and we get a value of, so this one divided by 0.15 supposed to be 0.833. Now, this value is a strong value, is a strong measure of risk. It is above 0.5, it is close to 1. So it means this firm, the investment that this firm is supposed to venture in is highly risked. So it can as well avoid investing in the shares. Thank you.